Have you ever sat down at the end of the day, maybe with a cup of tea in your hands, and wondered why you feel more tired now than you used to, even on days when you didn't do all that much? Or maybe you wake up in the morning and your body feels heavy, your joints a little stiff, your mind not quite as clear as it once was. And you think to yourself, is this just part of getting older? Or is there something I can actually do about it? If that thought has ever crossed your mind, I want you to know you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not powerless. Because here's something I've learned after listening to so many women just like you, women who've lived full lives, raised families, carried responsibilities, and given so much of themselves over the years. Sometimes the biggest changes don't come from adding more into your life. They come from letting a few things go. In this video, we're going to talk about 6 simple things you can stop doing, little habits, everyday patterns, that may quietly be draining your energy, affecting your health, and stealing your peace without you even realizing it. And the beautiful part is, none of these require fancy diets, expensive programs, or exhausting routines. They are simple, gentle, and very, very powerful. Let's begin with something that might sound small at first, but makes a bigger difference than most people expect. Late-night eating. Now, I know how comforting it can feel to have a little something in the evening. Maybe you're watching your favorite show, the house is finally quiet, and you think, just a small snack won't hurt. A few crackers, a slice of toast, maybe a little bowl of ice cream. It feels harmless, doesn't it? But over time, your body starts telling a different story. You might notice your sleep isn't as deep. You wake up feeling a bit sluggish. There's a heaviness that seems to linger through the morning. And it's easy to blame age for that feeling, but often it's not age at all. It's timing. You see, your body does most of its repair work while you sleep. That's when it restores, heals, and resets. But if it's still busy digesting food late into the night, it can't fully focus on that repair. It's like trying to clean your home while dinner is still cooking in the kitchen. Things never quite get finished the way they should. And I remember one woman, she was in her early 70s, who told me she thought her low energy was just part of getting older. But when she started having her last meal earlier in the evening, around 6 or 7, and stopped snacking afterward, something shifted. Within just a couple of weeks, she said her mornings felt lighter, clearer. She wasn't dragging herself out of bed anymore. Nothing dramatic. Just a quiet improvement that made her days feel easier. So if you take anything from this first habit, let it be this. Give your body time to rest at night without asking it to work overtime. Now, let's gently move into something that doesn't affect the body in quite the same way, but can drain your energy just as deeply. Arguing with people who don't want to listen. Oh, this one can sneak up on you. Because it often starts from a good place. You care. You have experience. You've lived long enough to understand things more clearly than you did when you were younger. And when someone says something that feels wrong, or stubborn, or just plain unreasonable, it's natural to want to correct them. To explain. To help them see your point of view. But here's the quiet truth many of us learn a little later in life. Not everyone is listening to understand. Some people are only listening to respond. Or worse, they're not listening at all. And when you find yourself going back and forth, trying to prove a point, raising your voice just a little, replaying the conversation in your mind later that night, ask yourself something gently. Did that bring me peace? Because more often than not, it doesn't. It leaves you feeling tense, drained, maybe even a little upset long after the conversation is over. And the hardest part? Most of the time, nothing changes. The other person still believes what they believed before. And you're left carrying the weight of the whole interaction. I once spoke to a woman who said she used to lie awake at night thinking about arguments she had earlier in the day. She would replay what she said, what she should have said, how she could have said it better. And I asked her how many of those arguments actually changed the other person's mind. She paused for a moment and then smiled softly. None of them, she said. That's when something shifted for her. She started choosing her peace over being right. Now, that doesn't mean she agreed with everything. It doesn't mean she stopped having opinions. It simply meant she stopped spending her energy trying to convince people who weren't open to hearing her. Sometimes she would just nod. Sometimes she would change the subject. And sometimes she would simply walk away. And you know what she told me? I sleep better now. There's a kind of quiet strength in that. In knowing when to step back, not because you've lost, but because you've chosen yourself. Because your energy matters. Your peace matters. Your well-being matters. And every argument you choose not to have is energy you get to keep. Now, there's one more habit I want to share with you before we continue, and this one is something many of us don't even notice we're doing. Sitting for too long. It happens so easily, doesn't it? You sit down to watch a program, then one episode turns into two. You sit with a book, or your phone, or maybe just resting your legs for a while, and before you know it, hours have passed. And there's no judgment here. Truly. Rest is important. Especially as we get older. But there's a difference between rest and stillness that lasts too long. Our bodies were made to move. Not in intense or exhausting ways, but in gentle, steady ways throughout the day. Little movements. Walking to the mailbox. Standing up during a phone call. Stretching your arms while waiting for the kettle to boil. Tending to a few plants, even if it's just for a few minutes. These small moments of movement keep your circulation flowing. They help your joints stay flexible. They remind your body that it's still alive, still active, still capable. I like to think of the body like a quiet stream. When the water keeps moving, it stays clear and fresh. But when it sits still for too long, it becomes stagnant. And the same thing can happen to us, slowly, over time, without us even realizing it. You don't need a gym. You don't need a strict routine. You just need to interrupt the stillness a little more often. Even standing up for a few minutes every hour can begin to change how your body feels. And over time, those small changes add up in ways that feel almost surprising. Because the goal isn't to push yourself harder. It's simply to keep yourself moving, gently, consistently, kindly. And as we continue, there's another layer to all of this, something that doesn't show up in the body right away, but can weigh on the heart for years without being seen, because sometimes the heaviest things we carry aren't visible at all. They don't show up on a scale. They don't appear in a mirror. And no one around us may even know they are there. But you feel them. In the quiet moments. In the way your chest tightens when you remember something from years ago. In the way certain names still stir something deep inside you. I'm talking about holding on to grudges. Now, this is a tender subject. And if you've lived a long life, you've likely experienced real hurt. Not small misunderstandings, but deep, meaningful pain. The kind that comes from people you trusted. People you loved. Sometimes even family. And when something like that happens, it can feel almost impossible to just let it go. Because a part of you feels like letting go means saying it didn't matter. But it did matter. Your pain was real. Your experience was real. And nothing about forgiveness erases that. But here's what many women come to understand later in life. Holding on to that pain doesn't protect you. It keeps you tied to it. I once sat with a woman who hadn't spoken to her sister in over 15 years. They had a falling out over something that, at the time, felt unforgivable. Harsh words were said. Doors were closed. And time passed. Years turned into a kind of quiet distance that neither of them knew how to cross. And she told me something I'll never forget. She said, I thought I was holding on to my pride, but really, I was holding on to my pain. That pain didn't stay neatly tucked away. It followed her. Into her days. Into her nights. Into her health. Because bitterness has a way of settling into the body. It shows up as tension, as restlessness, as a kind of quiet heaviness that doesn't fully go away. Doctors might talk about stress hormones and blood pressure, and those things are very real. But sometimes it's simpler than that. Carrying anger for years is like holding a weight that no one else can see, but you feel every single day. And here's the gentle truth. The other person is often living their life just fine. Sleeping. Laughing. Moving forward. While you are the one still carrying the past. That realization can be painful. But it can also be freeing. Because it means you have a choice. Forgiveness doesn't have to be a big dramatic moment. It doesn't require long conversations or perfect resolutions. Sometimes it's simply a quiet decision within yourself. A decision to stop carrying something that's been hurting you. To put it down. And when you do, something inside you begins to soften. You might not forget. You might not go back to how things were. But you create space in your heart again. Space for peace. Now, let's gently move into something that many women struggle with, especially those who have spent their lives caring for others. Trying to please everyone. If you're someone who has always been the dependable one, the helpful one, the one people turn to, then you know exactly what this feels like. You say yes when someone asks for help, even if you're tired. You listen when someone needs to talk, even if you need rest. You show up, you give, you support, because that's who you've always been. And there's something beautiful about that. But over time, something can quietly begin to happen. You start to feel stretched thin. Your days feel full, but not fulfilling. You're always doing something for someone else, yet you rarely feel truly at ease. And sometimes, there's a small voice inside you that whispers, "What about me?" But that voice gets pushed aside. Because you don't want to disappoint anyone. You don't want to seem selfish. You don't want to let people down. So you keep saying yes. Until one day, you realize you've been saying no to yourself. I remember a woman who told me she couldn't remember the last time she had a full afternoon to herself. There was always something. Someone needed something. And she felt responsible for being there. And when I asked her what she would do if she had that time, she paused. She didn't have an answer right away. Because she had spent so many years taking care of everyone else, she had forgotten how to take care of herself. That's when something shifted for her. She began to understand that setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away. It's about making space for your own well-being. And here's something important to remember. The people who truly care about you will respect your limits. They may not always understand at first, but they will adjust. And the ones who don't respect your limits were often the ones benefiting most from you having none. Learning to say no, kindly, gently, but firmly, is one of the most powerful things you can do for your health. Because your time is not endless. Your energy is not unlimited. And you deserve to spend both in ways that nourish you, not drain you. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, "I can't today." No long explanations. No guilt. Just honesty. And over time, That honesty creates a life that feels lighter, more balanced, more yours. And as we continue, there's one more habit that quietly shapes so many lives. Something that often feels harmless in the moment, but slowly steals time in ways we don't notice until much later. Because sometimes the thing that takes the most from us isn't what we do. It's what we keep putting off. Procrastinating. Now, this doesn't always look the way people think it does. It's not just about delaying chores or avoiding tasks. In fact, for many women in this stage of life, it shows up in much quieter, deeper ways. It sounds like this. I'll start taking better care of myself next month. I'll call her when things settle down. I'll plan that trip when I feel more ready. I'll enjoy life later. And at first, it feels harmless. Reasonable, even. Because there's always something else that needs attention right now. Responsibilities. Family. Little things that seem more urgent. So you wait. But here's the truth that gently reveals itself over time. Later has a way of turning into never. I once spoke with a woman who had always dreamed of visiting the ocean. Not for anything extravagant. She just wanted to sit by the water, feel the breeze, and listen to the waves. It was something she talked about for years. But there was always a reason to wait. There were bills to pay. People to care for. Things to take care of first. And one day, she realized she had spent decades postponing something that could have brought her so much simple joy. That realization didn't come with anger, it came with a quiet sadness. Because time doesn't pause while we prepare to live. It keeps moving. And the hardest part is, we don't always notice how much has passed until we look back. Now, this isn't about rushing or filling your days with constant activity. It's not about pressure or trying to do everything all at once. It's about allowing yourself to live now. To do the small things that bring you peace. To say the words you've been holding back. To take that walk, make that call, start that habit, not someday, but today, in whatever small way you can. Because life isn't waiting somewhere ahead of you. It's already here. And every day you choose to live it, even in the smallest ways, you reclaim something precious. You reclaim your time. And when you begin to let go of these quiet habits, something beautiful starts to happen. Your body begins to feel lighter. Your mind becomes calmer. Your days feel more your own. Not because everything around you has changed, but because something within you has shifted. You've stopped holding on to things that were slowly wearing you down. You've given yourself permission to rest, to move, to choose peace, to set boundaries, to release the past, and to live in the present. And those changes, as simple as they may seem, have a way of adding up. So if you're sitting there right now, listening to this, wondering if it's too late to make a change, let me gently remind you, it's not. It's never too late to take one small step toward a better way of living. You don't have to change everything overnight. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to begin. Maybe tonight, you finish your dinner a little earlier. Maybe tomorrow, you choose not to engage in an argument that would only drain you. Maybe you stand up and stretch a few times throughout the day. Maybe you soften your heart, just enough to release a little bit of old pain. Maybe you say no to something that would have exhausted you. Maybe you stop waiting and do one small thing that brings you joy. That's how it starts. Not with big, overwhelming changes, but with quiet, meaningful choices. And those choices, repeated day after day, shape the life you're living. If this message spoke to you in any way, I'd love to hear from you. You can share your thoughts or your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes, your story can help someone else more than you realize. And if you found comfort or value in this conversation, Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel Elderly Faith Journey. We're here to walk alongside you, to share wisdom, encouragement, and gentle reminders that you're not alone on this journey. No matter your age, no matter your past, there is still so much life ahead of you. So take a deep breath. Be kind to yourself. And remember, the most powerful changes often begin with the simple decision to let something go. Here's to living your life with more peace, more clarity, and more quiet joy, one day at a time.